Was the richest person in African history? How much was he worth? How did he become rich? Is it true that this African became the richest person on earth and in all history? This is going to be a very interesting investigation. A search on the internet about the richest African in history yields an amazing answer, but automatically it hides a very powerful philosophical truth there in the open. This will shock millions and force us to rethink this fact. Richest African in history was probably not an African at all. The richest African in history was not an African. Who was the richest person in African history? What the media hides. This will come as a shock, but will tend to be one of the deadliest facts. Up to today, 23608K after the kingdom, or Pagan year 2018, there has never been a native African who became the richest in Africa or on earth. Yes, none. We will endeavor to make this crystal clear and remove the concealed fluff that gives us a false sense of comfort that we can make money and be rich. The truth is we cannot. The richest African in history was not an African. Top rich list, which you always get from various magazines. When you contemplate about wealth, affluence, treasure, riches and prosperity, you probably visualize a Rothschilds or Rockefeller, trillionaire dynasties. You are probably correct. Although we get all this, the control, real wealth, mineral wealth, political systems, monetary and financial systems, we are told that Mansa Musa tops the 10 wealthiest people in human history. Celebrity net worth list 2012 gives Mansa Musa, one ruler of Malian Empire, 1280 to 1331, 400 billion. And that was a calculation then, but today with the net present value of money, he runs into trillions. He's followed at number 2 by the Rothschild family, which is a banking dynasty. The John D. Rockefeller industrialists. At this list, we have to accept and agree that John D. Rockefeller and Rothschilds are topical. They are people that we must watch. But we disagree and say Mansa Musa was not rich for Africa. Yes, the richest person in African history is found in the Mali Empire, which we are showing here. The richest African in history was not probably an African. Mansa Musa, his real name was Musa Keita, presided over the famed Mali Empire from 1312 to 1337 after Common Era. One of the most powerful leaders of his time, he developed Mali into a renown throughout the European and Islamic countries. He was an African by race indeed, but he was not totally and fully African. The Mandinka migrated west from the Niger River Basin, in search of better agricultural land, more opportunities and conquest. The Mandinkas founded the Empire Kabu, comprising 20 small kingdoms. The Empire of Mali was founded by the great warrior diplomat Sundiata, who reigned from 1230 to 55 after death on the Mandinka Plateau between the Niger and Senegal rivers. This is the kingdom, the network of the kingdom. Here in the original home of Mandingo people, Sundiata built his capital at Niani, and also at the confluence of the Niger and Sankarani rivers. Musa Keita, the richest in history, yes, but beware of the caveats. Musa the Magnificent, he was a very successful leader, celebrated for his enlightenment, justice and piety. Noble traits indeed. Inheriting a great empire, he extended its boundaries and made his country a world power. Why indeed? But today Mali is the poorest, ravaged by wars, by Islamic fundamentalism, by poverty, and anything that you can name. It is an example of what we want to discuss today. Sundiata Keita 1260 was the founder of the Mali Empire. His nickname is the Lion King of Mali. He was the first king of the Mande people to use the title Mansa, which means King of Kings. And the Musa is Arabic for Moses. We can see him here. He was great. He had notable achievements, Mansa Musa. His famous pilgrimage to Mecca in 324 spreads Mali's renown and prestige, not only in Islamic countries, but to the far corners of medieval Europe. In his train, as he traveled eastward, were 60,000 courtiers and servants, richly dressed, and 80 camels, each carrying some 300 pounds of gold. This is how the African leaders traveled then. It is the same today. They travel with entourages. Whenever his train halted on a Friday, he paid for the erection of a mosque. Everywhere he went, he became legendary for his generosity and the extravagant spending of his entourage. We will see the problems with this. He explored the earth. He sent his navy to the Americas to look for his brother who had gone missing there. Great universities he built, yes, but there are lots of subtlety and other subtleties. The biggest reason why he was not an African, the major flaws in the narrative is going to be shown now. It is his religion, Islam. You cannot be an African if you destroy African culture. He was rich, yes, but he was a Muslim. He was not for Africa. You cannot be a true Muslim and be a true African at the same time. The same, you can't be a true Christian and a true African at the same time. The two cannot mix. It's like water and oil. Mansa Musa helped spread Islam in Mali. Before the Empire of Mali, the Mande people tolerated Islam. It was already there, but they tolerated it and often blended Islam with their indigenous religion, which is not acceptable, which is disastrous, which destroys us as black people. Mande people still prayed to spirits of their ancestors. This is it, but they were already in the process of destroying it. Early Mali rulers accepted Islam, but did not follow all the teachings. We don't have to accept anything else other than pure, clear, straightforward African religion. He went to the Hajj. He didn't visit African countries. He didn't raise any African profiles. Mansa Musa took power in 1312 Common Era, becoming the first West African ruler to practice Islam devoutly. So he practiced jihadist. So he cannot be an African. He was rich, yes, but he was not an African because of that. He made Mali an important partner for Muslim traders and scholarship. You see how he destroyed us. You see how he's not an African. He went on a Hajj to demonstrate Mali's wealth, power, and his piety, Islamic piety, is disastrous for Africans. You can see and read this slide from https://sladeplayer.com shown here. Subtle Islamization. So when he returned from Mecca, Musa was accompanied by Abdulazia, a Muslim architect, and scholar Sahel, who introduced into Mali a new development architecture, especially in the buildings of mosques, which is taboo in African tradition, and the palaces, which is taboo in African tradition. He was not an African. He allowed the destruction of African culture. He built an Islamic city called Timbuktu, or Timbuktu, or Timbuktu, spelled this way. Why? This city had 333 signs. It's 11. It's a secret society code. Timbuktu is also known as the city of 333 because of Mansa Musa. We built one of the largest Islamic libraries in Africa since Egypt's library on Alexandria to teach foreign religion to Africans. This is it. Mansa Musa did not stop slave trade or slavery of black people. He himself had 12,000 slaves. What for? To do what? Some upper class or urban Mandinkas converted to Islam during the reign of the great Mansa Musa. He was not great. He was great for Islam, not great for Africans. Through a series of conflicts, primarily with the Fula-led Imamate of Futa Jalon and among the sub-states of Kahabu up, but half of the Senegambia and Mandinka were converted to Islam, while as many as third were sold into slavery to the Americas through capture and conflict. So how could you say this person is great? Would you applaud Mansa Musa as a great African? We don't, we won't, we shouldn't. Is it different from current African leaders? No, not at all. He's the same. He, without knowing it, created problems for all of us today. Mansa Musa was a Muslim king, not an African king, because Islam is not an African religion at all. He increased his wealth and power and fame, yes, but for Islam, because of Islam spread and got rooted in West Africa. During his rule, the army captured trade cities like Timbuktu. There he is, capturing, destroying black people against black people. He had what we call systems failure. Mansa Musa, also known as the richest man that ever lived till this day, his combined fortune is about 4.3 trillion when you calculate it today. There he is. Despite his massive wealth, he failed. He is a failure. He was not an African. That's like all of us today. This kind of potential wealth can generate either generational prosperity or generational disaster. This is what happened. Islam is not an African religion. It is destructive to us. You can read more about how it can never be from the book The Legacy of Arab Islam by John Alembil Azuma. It is not. It can never be. It will never be an African religion, come hell, come summer. Mansa Musa was a very rich king, yes. He is said to have taken more than 500 people with him on the Hajj, each carrying a staff of solid gold. For what? When Mansa Musa passed through the Egyptian city of Cairo, legend says he gave away so much gold that the price of gold fell. How could the price of gold fall when he is control? When we say he's powerful, when we say he was a great leader, how does it happen? How can you connect it to that? Let me say this affected God for more than 20 years. The appearance, this is very interesting. We will show how it is very interesting. Follow us in this argument. The appearance of a wealthy king from a faraway land made a deep impression on the people he encountered, causing Mali to appear on maps throughout the Middle East and in Europe. There is the problem. We don't have secrets. We don't have control. For the first time, Sub-Saharan Africa became well known not for the great desert as well, but for riches and for wealth, inviting vultures, inviting disaster. Why? The religion he followed is not an African. His ideology was destructive to Africa. He was rich but misaligned. He even Arabized his soul to the name Musa, Arabic for Moses. We should be careful. He used this word to build mosques which are still there today, causing great disaster. Just 2 generations later, his world record net worth was gone. Gone, wiped off. This is the disaster. Let us now conclude by unveiling the biggest lesson from Mansa Musa. He was the richest, yes. He was not aligned to Africa. This is not taught anyway. It is clouded by other hiding themes. Like Mansa Musa was generous, powerful, great, etc. Yet the clue comes from the gold prices that fell during his time. If he was powerful, he would have controlled those prices. Within 2 generations, his wealth was gone, which means he lacked generational wisdom. He failed to formulate an African monetary system that would have placed Africa on a control platform. Why? Because he was a Muslim. He was limited by the religion that he believed. He was controlled by the religion that he followed. At that time, Europe was almost dead and buried from barbarism, plague, and lack of leadership. But who controlled the gold prices then? Within 2 generations, Mansa Musa's wealth was stolen, or they say lost. But is it not shocking that a few years after, Europe rose and never fell again? How did Europe rise up? We give it clear here. It is clear then that Mansa Musa failed to take advantage of his wealth and install a succession system that would put black people and black nations on a sustained earth control mode. Here is a family that took the smallest advantage, and today they own the earth. Item stands out as a person listens to the international bankers and reads their books. They believe money is what makes the world go round. If you have money, you can do anything. Money is gold. Money is God, and it is worshipped and served. Even after these families accumulate more than they can spend, these devotees continue selling their souls for this false but powerful God. The great poet philosopher Heinrich Heine, a banker's son, said money is the God of our time and Rothschild is his prophet. Amsel Bauer Rothschild is reported to have said, give me control of the economics of a country and I care not who makes the laws. This is what Mansa Musa should have learned. This is what Mansa Musa should have done. System, not individual. This is why Africa dawdles. This is why Africa fails. Because we worship an individual and fail to create a system. Today, Amsel Bauer Rothschild's descendants meet twice daily in London to dictate to the world what the world price of gold will be. They also dictate what the Federal Reserve System will do to the American finances and every human, because the Federal Reserve or central banking system is owned by the Rothschild. This is what Mansa Musa failed. Therefore, because of his Islamic religion and doctrine, he was not an African. He failed. You can read more on this website, which we are showing here, about the systems that we are discussing here. Let us compare now Mansa Musa versus Amsel Bauer Rothschild. Here is what Amsel Bauer Rothschild, the wisest man to ever live and ever walk the earth, said. The few who understand the system will either be so interested from its profits or so dependent on its favors that there will be no opposition from that class. Maya Amsel Bauer Rothschild. What then did our own African Mansa Musa leave with us? The Rothschild left a formula and Mansa Musa left some piety in some verses found in the Quran. Who rules today? Who rules now? The answer is clear. The answer is open. Thank you. We have proved that the richest African in history was not an African at all. He supported slavery. He followed an enslaver religion like Islam. He failed to implement an across-generational system to sustain African power, minerals, wealth, and riches. Today, we face the same disasters. Black leaders are selling out to China and Europe and other religions, looking at themselves, thinking that they are rich, but failing to know that it is a system that is powerful. It is a system that will become God. That's what our ancestors in Egypt did. They had a system that gave them power for 9,000 plus years. What can you and me do today? Remove ourselves from spiritualities like Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Reclaim our ancestry via totems and embrace African spiritualities like ancient African mysteries, Egyptian mysteries, voodoo, ancestor arousal, pure African meditative systems like trance. Let's put in place systems to cut across generations and start to spread this true narrative. This is what Hamiti Hebrew Ethics teaches. It's time to co-work with us as we spread this original African salvation narrative. Hamiti Hebrew Ethics, our mission is to teach a revealed applied knowledge that enables any black person achieve their goals. The work is great and souls await the call. If this is your time, grab your ancestry and walk with God again. This is Priest Rabbi LM Tumizulu, Hamiti Hebrew Ethics. Contact us on this email, lmtumizulu@gmail.com. This is our time to walk with God again. Till we meet again, Salanka. Thank you. Goodbye.